Good. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fort McMurray. I'm joined today by Mayor Melissa Blake, by Municipal Affairs Minister Danielle Larrivee, by Chief of the Fort McMurray First Nation, Ron Kreutzer, by Bob Couture, the Director of Emergency Management Services for the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, and by Chad Morrison from Alberta Firefighters. This community may look and feel very different than the community that you left last month, but it is still a strong community, and progress is being made each day to make it stronger. 8 information centres are open. 6 in Fort McMurray, 1 in Anzac, and 1 at Nistawoyu Friendship Centre. 30,000 re-entry information packages have been delivered door-to-door to 30,000 homes. Taxi service resumed in Fort McMurray today. The Northern Lights Regional Health Centre opened its doors at 8 a.m. this morning with a functioning ER, lab services, and diagnostic imaging. Mental health workers are in the community at the information centres and roving in neighbourhoods where residents are returning today. There are grocery stores, pharmacies, banks, and gas stations open. I'm told that traffic into town is slow and steady. As of noon, roughly just over 1,200 vehicles had passed up Highway 63 and roughly 1,600 on Highway 881. Officials estimate that roughly 7,500 people have arrived today so far, and that at the information centres we've seen just a little over 1,400 people register so far. So I'd like to thank the returning residents, whether they are coming home to stay or just to pick up a few items, for respecting the zoned entry plan and for traveling patiently and safely on the highway. And what a welcome they have when they come into town. The arch of fire truck cranes, flags, and the firefighters waving says welcome home. Says welcome home more powerfully than any words could. Today begins a journey more than a month in the making, the journey home to Fort McMurray. This journey is possible because of incredibly brave and dedicated first responders who were able to save so much of this city from one of the most destructive wildfires Alberta, and indeed Canada, has ever seen. They also facilitated the safe evacuation of about 90,000 people from several communities, including people who had evacuated from Fort McMurray and then had to evacuate a second time from Janvier and points north of the city. They have my deepest thanks, and the deepest thanks of all Albertans. And it's worth reflecting on what they accomplished. The evacuation was not without its challenges. That's to be expected with the number of people being evacuated and the logistical challenges of a city served largely by one road. But the evacuation of Fort McMurray and the surrounding communities remains one of the miracles of this disaster. Tens of thousands of people were successfully evacuated from remote, isolated communities in a very short time. The evacuation also gave rise to the first of many, many inspiring stories about the compassion of Albertans and how they helped each other on the road to safety. That's one thing about Albertans. We are at our best when times are at their worst. And there were many people who made that difficult day a little easier, including those who risked their own safety to bring gasoline to people stranded on Highway 63. Those communities and those families who welcomed evacuees with open arms, and those who never stopped working to battle the blaze and protect people's homes, properties, and livelihoods. From the day people left this community, those who stayed behind have been working hard to make it ready for them to come home again. And they were joined by hundreds of people from all across Alberta who came to restore utilities and medical services, to secure hazardous areas, to restart retail operations and other services that people will need beginning today. Now, I was here just after the fire swept through, and I can tell you that what those people have accomplished between then and now, and under very difficult working situations, is nothing short of remarkable. My thanks go to Mayor Melissa Blake, the council and staff of the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, the staff here at the Regional Emergency Operations Center, the staff at our Provincial Operations Center in Edmonton who supported them, all the first responders and essential service workers, and everyone else who helped get Fort McMurray ready for today. So many people have been working very hard since the day the city was evacuated to make it ready for residents to return to. And here too are some very touching stories of human kindness. The utility crews from TELUS, who worked all day and night, and when they were off shift, worked to remove soot, ash, and debris from playground equipment. The firefighters, who after working around the clock, brought cookies from their work camp mess halls to the hotel workers as a thank you. And the Municipal Enforcement Service that had conducted the largest pet evacuation in Canadian history and has reunited more than 1,000 pets with their families. I heard today of a bylaw officer who rescued a hamster that was found weeks after the fire, who took the time to call its 5-year-old owner to tell her that the pet was safe and sound. And meanwhile, just today, I heard from Chief Kreutzer from the Fort McMurray First Nation about how in the Fort McMurray First Nation, they've not yet lost a fridge. Because as people were away, the people who remained behind went in and cleaned out the fridges and put in baking soda to make sure that they'd be okay when people came home today. Good work. So these are the points of light in the midst of some very, very hard days, and many hard days still lie ahead. As residents return to Fort McMurray, they will have to call on the strength that they have shown so abundantly throughout this disaster. So my final thank you today is to everyone across this amazing, wonderful region. You have shown tremendous courage under the most difficult of circumstances, and you will need every ounce of that courage in the days to come, because the road ahead is still a long one. Today is not the end of the story. It is not a return to normal life, and it's not yet a celebration. There is still a lot of work to recover and rebuild Wood Buffalo. This will be the work of years, not weeks. And it is work, though, that you can count on that we will do together. Our government will be with you as Fort McMurray rebuilds. We will be with you as you face challenges along the way, and there will be challenges. But we will find solutions to problems together. And I encourage you to continue to support each other and work together as a community in the spirit that you have demonstrated over the last difficult weeks. Together, all of us will make the city strong and whole and even better once again. So, once again, I say, welcome home. And I'd like to ask now, I believe, the mayor to come up and say a few words to you.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. I am delighted to be here today representing my regional council. And as I do so, I'm joined by Councillor McGrath, who I was able to pick out in the crowd. He's got a bright pink shirt on somewhere. There he is. And the remainder of my council colleagues are still working their way back home. I was a very compliant mayor. I'm not due until tomorrow, but I got a free ride up today, so hey, I'm glad to be here for day one. And I'm delighted. When I think about a picture means 1,000 words, what does a billboard mean when it says, welcome home? Well, what it does for me is it fills my heart. Each time I've been back to the community, each time I've tried to cultivate and make that grow. And as we think about what we're about to do, we've got an incredible community at the foundation. We have some very fertile soil, and I think if we all pull together and till it, then the seeds that we plant will bloom into something incredible. I have even fewer doubts every time I come. But for our citizens, this will be your first return. And the first thing I want you to see is that incredible welcome home sign. It is our home, and together we will rebuild, and we will be better because of it. I know that's for certain. When people come, we've always told them what they need to bring along, a couple of weeks worth of food, all your medicines and so on. At the same time, as we're telling you these things, I'm delighted to say that we've had incredible critical support structures coming online. And as you get here, we hope that you'll be able to shop local. We wanted you to do that before this. We want you to do it even more right now. And I think that it's going to take that first moment of shock shock. It will be shocking if you have not seen it firsthand. But then go like me, go into what you can imagine for our future together, because I promise you it's a wonderful place to be. I really can't express my gratitude quite enough to the people who have made this return home today possible. The Premier's done an excellent job of acknowledging some of the stories that are out there and the people who have been doing work behind the scenes. I say there's a few different levels, of course, that I give my gratitude to. First and foremost, I do want to thank the Premier, Minister Larrabee, the entire province of Alberta. The government has supported us incredibly through this, and I'm told that they're not about to drop us now, that they're very prepared to continue supporting our community as we go through that critical rebuilding period. And the folks behind the signs, I say, the first-line responders, they're easy to pick out. Don't be insulted, but I said yesterday that they're easy because they're the dirty and devoted people that just wouldn't quit. And because they just wouldn't quit, we've got 90% left to come back to. The guys that are not in the front of the cameras usually, they're taking calls like that in the REOC, and they're managing behind the scenes. They're actually municipal employees. They're making sure those water services are perpetually on so that our firefighters and frontline defenders are able to do what they can to save our community. And when I look behind that even, there are so many more supports that have come in. The Premier noted that we had evacuation centers and we had our citizens who were not only welcomed in and provided with the essentials of life, they were given kindness and compassion. And what I'm hoping for our citizens now is that with all the gratitude that we have for those people who helped us in this journey, is that when we come home, we'll help each other. And I don't doubt for a second that we will. But for every person who has given a contribution, for every person whose life has been touched by what we've been through, I also want to tell you I care tremendously about what you've done for us, and I care about you. And when I say that, we think that when we bring our folks home, we want to make sure that they are well prepared, both physically and emotionally, that they're supported. And I know that the support doesn't end at our borders. I know that we're going to be looking for everybody to come out of this a little bit better on the other side. There's an inevitable path that people are going to take, and there is this incredible honeymoon phase where we have all the love and support, and then there's the drop when you see your community, you see your assets that have been lost, and you see the compromises that you've made. But I'm asking my citizens to remember when you took your leave, remember all that mattered. All that mattered was what was in your transport. If you're in a car, if you're in a bus, if you're with the people you loved, the only thing any of us cared about were those people. And as the mayor of this community and with my council colleagues, we only care about our community as much as what you do for your families. And so when we will hit the wall and we'll have those difficult moments, seek out the support that you need and know that we're right there along with you and that we will weather any storm that comes our way. In our garden, we'll till the weeds as they pop up. We'll find a way forward. The end of my remarks, of course, is that we know not everyone can come home. We've heard recently, of course, about the efforts that are being made to reduce the toxins that may potentially be present and impacting neighborhoods. We've got our communities of Abasand and Beacon Hill and Waterways just waiting with bated breath to hear the plan. I promise you there is a plan coming and it'll be here shortly. But in the meantime, beyond that, we lost a few lives. The orange ribbons that we wear are in support and memory of the 2 lives that were lost during our egress from the south, and we extend our condolences there. And of course, last night we did have another tragedy. We had an ATV incident up in the community of Fort McMurray, and I need to express my condolences to the family members there who have lost yet another loved one. But despite those losses, I will say again, welcome home. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today in our beautiful city of Fort McMurray, located in the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. I'm Bob Couture, the Director of Emergency Management for the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. It goes without saying, today represents a huge positive step in the recovery phase of the process, and is very much what we've been working towards. You can understand we have a huge staff in our REOC Centre here, various different components, emergency staff, members of the Alberta government, emergency management, our firefighters, EMS, ATCO Gas, ATCO Electric, pretty well every department represented, working on a plan that will bring home our citizens safely. That is our number one objective. When we evacuated, we were very fortunate we didn't have anybody hurt seriously, other than the unfortunate 2 deaths. We want to have the same thing when our citizens return. We want it done safely, and that is our number one goal. Our residents have been very good so far. We have had dates that we've set out for the return by zones, and we're asking for our citizens to adhere to those conditions. We want that phased-in approach, and today is an example of success with that. As we talked about earlier, of people already been in the information centers, the traffic on 63, everything has been orderly, and everything is going as planned. It has been a huge success so far, and we want to continue that today. As we know, this will be a very emotional event to some of our residents, and those that are suffering those emotional events, please go to the information centers. We have the support structure there for you, and we want there to assist and help you through this time. I want to say a big thank you to those essential services, the grocery stores, pharmaceutical companies, the gas station operators that came back in the community and set the path and set the tone to get our community back up and running. Huge sacrifice by them, huge timelines, and a whole pile of work. And the stories that are going to be told because of this are incredible. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out to join us today. This is a day of celebration that brings our community back and focusing on our theme. We are a safe community. We are a resilient community, but we're doing this together with all our partners. Thank you.
We have a large number of media here today, so if you have questions from the floor, there are 2 microphones set up on either sides of the cameras. If you could line up behind the microphones, and we'll alternate between the 2 before we go to the phone for questions. Let's start over here.
Hi, a question for the Mayor. Is this in some ways the easy part of the re-entry? The first day, people are going into the least affected areas downtown. Do you think the re-entry is going to get harder as people start going back to more badly burned areas of the city?
Yes, I think that the experiences that each of the residential neighborhoods are going to have will be mirroring what their impacts have been. And so if you go into the community of Timberlea, for example, next to nothing is going to show a difference for them. Pretty easy to go back. When you go into Stone Creek, it's like a meteor struck in the middle. And if you're going to Stone Creek, it's going to be pretty hard not to see that and have some reaction that will be different. But at least Stone Creek people have the chance to go. When you go into the more impacted areas that have now recently been off limits until we find a plan to get them back in, the Abbas and Beacon Hill waterways will definitely process things quite differently than the rest of the community that have had less of an impact. So it really is imperative that people seek out the support that they're going to need. We have resources available and we want to help them through whatever their circumstances are.
Since there's no one at this microphone, we can continue with this one.
Okay, maybe a question for the Mayor again. I wanted to ask about sort of the rebuilding process. Obviously, reentry is very important, but now we move into the rebuilding process. There's still businesses cleaning up today, still a lot of things not open. Can you speak to that and just how much work is left to do?
As we were working through the critical reentry partners, we were tracking their progress, and inevitably it was not an overnight transition. And so I think depending on the nature of the business that you're in, today will be the first entry day for anybody in the downtown. They'll go through the same or similar process. It might be up to a few weeks to clean off shelves and do what they need to make the work environments appropriate. The other challenge that our local businesses are likely to face is the same as what any organization is, and it's the understanding of who in their employee base has been impacted and what are their needs going to be as well. And so I think normalization is certainly the destiny we're pursuing, but the path that each individual business will take will follow differently. But the imperative for me, again, is in making sure that we give the opportunities for our local businesses to be supported by our local region as well.
And just to follow up, I'm not sure who can answer, but I'm wondering what's happening for the staff now working in the city who have lost their homes, where they're staying, what supports are being provided, bus drivers and other staff like that?
Yeah, one of the difficulties is if we have an understanding again of how many people are returning to the community that have had or experienced that loss, the initial reaction is, well, we've got these things, apartments that have been vacant and hotels that are open, but we're also competing with a workforce that's going to be here to really work through the cleanup and the rebuilding efforts as well. For our municipal employees, we have probably a mirror image to what the population has lost. If we had a 10% loss, 1,600 employees, we can predict there's probably 160 homes that have been impacted. This is just superficial, hypothetical, whatever. The difficulty is that each of those individuals will be responsible for figuring out how they're going to live post-event. So if there are supports that we're able to provide, we would look to do that, but the truth of the matter is that every individual is going to have a relationship with their insurance company that will dictate how they can plan for that. They're going to have the restraints or the opportunities that exist in the community, and it's not going to be an easy path forward for people, but this is again where I call on our community saying, we've been supported so much, it's time for us to support each other.
We'll come to this side now.
Okay. I'm not sure if this will be for Mayor Blake or Bob, but when it comes to the other communities that have been damaged, like Sapray Creek, Wood Buffalo, there were a lot of concerns raised in council yesterday that testing hadn't been done in those communities like it had been done in Abbotsand, Waterways, and Beacon Hill. Are we still looking at the original return dates for those communities for homes that are still standing?
Thank you. Yes, we're still focused on those return dates. As a matter of fact, we've taken a little more initiative, and we placed a notice on the door of the process that we want to see take place with there. And we are focusing on continuing to do testing with the environment, with the general environment, which again we want to report out. We want to ensure the community is safe. Right now, the test results indicate the community is safe, and we have to do a little more focus on where those test results are focused on.
Okay, and just to follow up on that kind of theme, with Waterways, Beacon Hill, and Abbotsand, with the contaminants that are in the ash probably seeping into the ground as well, will those neighborhoods be rebuilt?
At this time, they're restricted, and I am in no position to answer what's going to take place within the community. I would have to, as council moves forward on the recovery phase, I would have to leave that sit there.
Thank you.
Just wondering, what is it about the age 7 that you're recommending kids 7 and under not to come back? What is it about 7 years old?
Okay.
I guess I've been nominated to take that one. So certainly the medical officer of health was specifically recommending that children under 7 not return until the hospital is complete. Although having said that, she made it as a recommendation. It made it clear each family has to make their own individual decision in terms of what the needs of their children are. So the specific concerns absolutely are those who need regular medical care. They absolutely should not, but otherwise, you know, certainly there's a more softer recommendation for those under 7 children, just making sure those full hospital facilities are up and running.
So you are not, so children under 7 are, they can come back today, like you're not discouraging that?
Again, I think what she's saying is in an ideal situation, if you have the resources to stay away, then she's making that recommendation on that, but we're not prohibiting kids under 7 from coming back. We're just saying that consider what the particular situation is for your family, knowing that the medical officer of health had made a recommendation that if you can, that she would suggest you wait. Yeah.
Go ahead, on this side.
Okay, Premier Notley, it's a delicate question, but given that all that people have suffered in this wildfire and all that we know about the climate science suggesting that that climate change worsens the intensity of wildfires, do you think that now is the time that we can finally start to have a conversation in northern Alberta about diversifying our energy?
Well, I think actually that conversation was going on prior to this disaster. I think that people across Alberta, including people in Fort McMurray, have been having conversations about the issue of climate change and the way in which we engage in responsible energy development while at the same time moving forward in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. We had, our climate change leadership plan, which I would suggest is a leading plan in the country McMurray was one that enjoyed the support of some of the major employers that exist right here in this community. So I think that it's not really first of all, I don't think the fire itself is the trigger for the conversation, nor do I think it's really fair to characterize it as though that conversation wasn't already happening, because I think it was. And I think we had some very responsible energy producers that are based out of Fort McMurray who were committed to reducing the amount of carbon in the product that we produce and export. So we're going to continue to do the work that, as I've said before, I believe is game-changing and nation-leading on climate change that we'd already talked about doing. And we're also going to talk about our need to diversify our energy market, to get our products to Tidewater, and to support our energy industry in a progressive and sustainable way. And we are now going to add to that list of items supporting the town and the businesses of Fort McMurray in their recovery.
Seeing no questions lined up